It's Friday Night Lights, which means we have football on Friday night. We have the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Giants and the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Atlanta Falcons. Who are the prospects in both of these games that you need to watch tonight? We'll tell you next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Listen, guys, it's your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can always find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am the host of the Locked On Clemson podcast. So if you're a Clemson fan, go tap into that. But as always, man, we appreciate y'all for being the family in our everydayers and making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday. Guys, we have Friday Night Lights on tap. 2 games tonight that I'm going to talk with my guy, the champ himself, Mr. Sanchez, Mr. LSU, Keith. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man, in 2019. National champ with those LSU Tigers, man. But you know why we're here, right? Myself, Damian Parsons, we are here to bring you that championship-level content 24/7, 365 surrounding the NFL draft, man. Today, DP, like you said, Friday Night Lights, right? And we're not talking high school football, man. High school football didn't get started yet. But we're talking about the NFL preseason week 2, man. We have a slate of games. We have the Panthers versus the Giants. We have the Bengals versus the Falcons. And then, like I said, man, once again, one of my favorite segments. I seem to like all our segments, DP. And maybe that's because we make them up, right? The pick'em game. We get to put them on wax. And DP, I think this is what we was going to do. I was thinking late last night, man. We need to go ahead and tally this thing up, right? Keep a running tally of who gets these games right throughout the season so that we, somebody can have some bragging rights at the end of the season, man. So, DP, why don't we get this thing kicked off? I know we have a title sponsor, man, but when we come back, we need to get into this Panthers versus Giants matchup. What young guys are we looking for?
Yes, sir. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Young players for the Carolina Panthers being in the Carolinas, keep going to the camp and everything, getting a up close eye, right? A bird's eye view of this team. It starts at the top with Bryce Young, QB1. He's been named this. He was named QB1 at the beginning of the training camp. He's been named the starter for the 2023 NFL season, starting day 1 of his rookie year. Last week wasn't great for him, man, and it was a combination of just the offensive line and protection, right? Yeah, he was able to get the ball out and everything, but what I'm really looking for with him and against a Giants team that can rush the passer as well, and they have a really good defensive line especially when the starters are in, Keith, I just want to make sure that I want to see and make sure he's not pressing, that he's not trying to overcorrect for the offensive line, right? Because we've seen that with quarterbacks. You start getting hit early. Last week was the first time he was actually hit since the Kansas State game, since the bowl game. You know what I mean? When he was playing his last game at Alabama. That was January, right? Or somewhere in there, I think, like January.
January.
So it's been 6-7 months since he's been hit up until last week, and they teed off on him, Keith. He got hit multiple times by that Jets defensive line. So I just want to make sure that, see how he plays. How does he handle it, right? Is he going to come out and press and try to get the ball out too quick and, start telegraphing where he's going with the ball, kind of start predetermining his reads because he feels like he can't trust the offensive line? That's why I want to see just for him, Keith, because we always talk about his poise, his calmness, his control, and everything like that. And I mean, heck, that Auburn game, right? The Iron Bowl where he got hit like 2. He was pressured and hurried 22, almost 25 times, and they still end up winning that game. But this is the NFL, right? If those hits really start to add up, we've seen that at the quarterback position. So I just want to see how he bounces back compared to just the team's performance last week, where I don't think they scored a point. versus the Jets.
Yeah, no, I think they got blanked by the Jets, man. Which time will tell how good the Jets are, right? We'll see how that narrative goes. But DP, look, you talked about Bryce Young from a quarterback perspective, right? But he needs wide receivers to throw the football to. The Carolina Panthers drafted Jonathan Mingo in the top of the second round, top 40, top 50 pick, somewhere around there, right? Like he went one of the highest wide receivers. He was definitely a surprise pick, I think, for many people. People liked him, but they didn't know that he was going to go that high. But DP, when you go that high, you're drafted kind of to be the guy. You went to Carolina Panthers camp. Does he have the potential to be the guy, right? You trade DJ Moore, you get him up out of there. You need a dude because look at the rest of this wide receiver core. You're talking Terrace Marshall, right? Who, if he stays healthy, is a good player. You DJ Chark, veteran, right? He does what he does in a sense, right? Adam Thielen, aging, Laviska Shenault, he's a different type of football player. So can he be the dude? Can he be that guy on 3rd and 7? He can win, and Bryce Young can get him the football.
I think he can. I think, when you think about that Frank Reich offense with the Colts, 2 names come to mind. And it's between him and Terrace Marshall, who's going to fill what role. And that's Michael Pittman and that's Alec Pierce. And the question, I think, for me, when it comes to Mingo, he looked good in camp from the times I've seen him, be able to, separate, win vertically, sell good, be able to sell routes very well, much better than he did at Ole Miss. So it's like you could tell he's put the work in. This is a young man that really, really grinds and everything. So I'm just at the point with him, Keith, where I just need to know what you are. Are you a wide receiver 2? Are you a wide receiver 3? Or are you a wide receiver 1? And
that's he can't be a wide receiver 3, right? With his roster, and then especially kind of with Bryce Young, right? Because he's going to need weapons. At Alabama, he had dudes right there, Jameson Williams, he had John Mechie, he had we can continue to go. The dude, he had wide receivers. Not this past year, it was okay, but year before last, man, when he really when he went on that Heisman, when he won the Heisman, right, and went on that campaign. He really had dudes at the wide receiver position. But DP, I don't want to go too long because I want to switch on the other side of the ball, man, and go with the New York Giants, right? Because they have a lot of young guys. They're trying to retool this thing. They're trying to get this thing forward, right? Like New York Giants fans are not used to just being all about the Jets and not the Giants, right? Like, so I want to talk about a couple guys. I'm going to talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. I want to see him take a big step, man. I think he's in the right system, right scheme. I think he can really ball out, right? So I want to see him flash and really make some plays. And if he can get to the quarterback, it's even better. And if there's one other guy I want to see, it's Deonte Banks. No, it's Deonte Banks. It's really 2 guys. Deonte Banks, the cornerback, right, 1st-round pick. And then I want to see Evan Neal, man, because Andrew Thomas found his spot. But I've talked about Evan Neal, right? And I said, look, I think he's a much better left tackle than a right tackle. I wonder if he's going to be able to get his grip so that way the New York Giants can have a solidified offensive line because Andrew Thomas is on the left side and they're not about to move him because they just put him in place so he can have some productivity. So I'm looking at those 3 guys primarily for the New York Giants.
Nah, Keith, I think those are really good names to pull. I'm also just on the defensive side of the ball for the Giants. One offensive name, one defensive name. Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver. Want to see him because he was making some big plays in camp since training camp started, right? So I want to see that speed, see that playmaking ability. Has he improved in the route running and things like that? Just want to see him continue to take steps. And then Amani Oruwariye, former Detroit Lions cornerback. They say he's been making some strides in camp for the Giants, and they need as much cornerback help as possible. And if he can kind of revitalize his career, that could be really good for especially for a man-heavy, aggressive, physical Wink Martindale defense. But Keith, on the Panthers, really quickly, I got to talk about they have a situation at right guard, and there's 3 names: Justin McCray, Cade Mays, and Chandler Zavala. Like
somebody has to fill a position, right? They have to figure out either the left guard or the right guard position.
Right now, I think it's the right guard because Austin Corbett is still out because I believe he tore his ACL late in the season. So they like and the Brady Christensen thing, the former offensive tackle from BYU, I feel like he had fit the offense they ran last year. I don't know if he fits this offense. So they might have to figure out both starting guard positions right now. And when you have a quarterback like Bryce Young, who's 5'10", 185, 90 pounds, you need to protect him on the interior because he's quick enough to move up in the pocket, right? He's quick enough and twitchy enough to make guys on the edges miss when they, you know what I'm saying, when they come on the wide angle, he can step up, but you got to give him somewhere to step up too. And that offensive line, that interior, man, they got to figure it out, because if they don't, this is going to be a rough season for Bryce and for this offense, Keith, like completely. And you talked about Visca, with the receivers. I don't know how much of a full-fledged receiver he's going to play, because in camp, they've kind of used him like Deebo Samuel, Keith, talking about motion, handoffs in the backfield, everything.
That's what he needs to be used at. And so I think, but that's kind of to the point, like you said, like as far as having a true wide receiver, he's more of a, and I don't want to just throw the term gadget person on him, right? But he's a very specific utility wide receiver. DP, that wraps up this Panthers and Giants conversation, man. I think there's going to be a lot of intriguing prospects. The Giants, to me, have more potential for, just because they have a lot of high profile draft pick names. Like we talk about Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, and those guys, trying to see what they turn out to be, because people believe that this Giants team could be good and could make it back to the playoffs. But a lot is going to be riding on these young guys to deliver. DP, it's time to transition, right? We have another game, man. We have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Atlanta Falcons. Is that another Bijan type of situation, man? I'm all in on a Bijan, man. But coming up next, man, we're going to get into the Cincinnati Bengals, Atlanta Falcons, young players to watch.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, guys. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. Then add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. You have simple tools at your disposal, such as screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Cincinnati Bengals, Atlanta Falcons. Both teams have young players that you should know about. And Keith, he talked about Bijan and everything, but I want to go to the Bengals side of the ball. And Myles Murphy, the edge rusher that they drafted first round out of Clemson, man, a guy that I think could be a big time impact player for them. And the craziest thing about it, they already have two good edge rushers, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. So you talk about potentially him coming off the bench, Keith, guys, him coming off the bench in the third and fourth quarter, late in games with fresh legs, right? Ready to roll on those 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s, when your team, the opposing team, has to throw the football, and these tackles have been dealing with the pass rush all 4 quarters. And now you got this young beast coming off the bench, fresh legs, ready to go. I'm excited to kind of watch him and see how they use him. Is 2-point stance, 3-point stance, wide, steep angle, more short corners? Does he get any run? Could we potentially see some 3 defensive end sets, right? Where you keep DJ Reader as the lone, in that 4-man front as the lone D tackle, and maybe you slide a Sam Hubbard inside where you have DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard, and on the edges, Hendrickson and Myles Murphy.
I think that's the way to go for the Cincinnati Bengals. And they had a hell of a draft, right? And I want to talk about one position group specifically. I want to talk about the safeties, right? Because they drafted Jordan Battle, who I really like, and then they drafted Daxton Hill the year before. So I want to see how those two young guys really marry with each other, because I think they're really good complementary pieces, man. Daxton Hill was more of that corner, free safety, man-to-man, lock you down. And the Jordan Battle, he was more of that box safety, he can play some free, right, and stay away from the ball. But I think his best ball at Alabama, where we really seen him take off in the 2021 year, right, not this past year, 2021 year, his junior year was when he played closer to the football and he was able to make plays there. So I really like that young safety tandem. We know that they've had contract disputes, right? As far as I think with Jesse Bates and a couple other guys that they're trying to figure out how to pay. So I think that's always a good, position group just to kind of look at as that safety position group. And
I like the Dax Hill, not to cut you. I like that Dax Hill name pool, Keith, and how you talk about how they mesh together. Because that last week, against the Packers, he broke up, which would have been a big time throw from Jordan Love to Christian Watson, and the range that Dax Hill showed on that play as the single high safety. We talk about that position or that caliber of position has kind of gone extinct. He might be someone that brings it back, man. So I'm excited. I'm glad you pulled that name, man.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to throw one name out there because I think he might have been defensive MVP this past preseason week, right? And that's safety. I think he was from Toledo, Tyson Anderson, I believe.
He had like 2 interceptions or something like that.
Yeah, he had 2 interceptions. So we're talking about another safety, right? So this is gonna be a really deep safety safety room for the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of talented guys, and who knows, man? Just with you talk about matchups, right? You talk about the Buffalo Bills drafting Duncan Kay. You're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs having Travis Kelce, right? Like this might pay itself forward, right? Just safeties playing in the middle field and the pass rush with Myles Murphy. So they may have drafted exactly what they needed with DP. Let's transition. Let's go to the other sideline, right? Talk about the Atlanta Falcons, man. An interesting team, right? Because you're somewhere in between. I'm somewhere in between intrigued and I don't care that much, right? Like just with their roster because, and I'm just being completely honest in that some parts of it gets me really excited. But then some parts of it, I'm like, is this really going to work? So I want to ask you, for this thing to work, what young guys, DP, can you pinpoint and say, you know what, for the Atlanta Falcons to have a successful season, we need to point to these guys?
Well, first off, like with the Carolina Panthers, in the first segment, it starts at the quarterback position. Desmond Ridder, right? 3rd round pick last year. He played the last 4 games of the season. And there's a lot of Falcons fans now that
he is the key to this game, right? Like he has to play 100%. Well.
He's priority number 1 because there's a lot of Falcons fans now seeing Anthony Richardson kind of, really the throws and the things of him in game, and they're like, man, we really could have moved up and got, but the front office wanted to give Desmond Ridder his fair shot, his fair shake. So it starts with him, man, just going out there, making the plays, the reads, the throws, playing confident. He has the mobility to do the same thing Marcus Mariota did in this offense, and he has the arm talent to make all the NFL throws, right? So just go out there and play mistake-free football, right? Just kind of showcase why they believed in you. I think that's to improve yourself, right? And then by doing that, you'll prove all the haters wrong, Keith. But I think also, young player, Matthew Bergeron, man, they traded up, I think, in the second round to take him, out of Syracuse. And I think for him, just like being able to protect, like, on the interior offensive line and of course, open the run games for Bijan, right? Get the run game going with him and Tyler Algier. But, definitely keeping, Desmond Ridder comfortable in that pocket is going to be big for this offense in general, man. Because at the end of the day, if they can't do that, and Desmond Ridder is getting pressured, and he's not comfortable, and he's not being able to move, and the pockets are muddy, we're not going to see good football. And then he's not going to get the chance to he's not going to be with the Atlanta Falcons in 2024 as the starting quarterback. He'll probably be somewhere else, Keith.
Yeah, it's just like you did with the Carolina Panthers, right? You talk about the quarterback, I'm going to talk about the receiving options, man. So two people, Kyle Pitts, right? Because Kyle Pitts, and I would say not to his fault, like, the whispers and, there's starting to be rumblings of, oh, was this a bust of a pick, right? And I'll say this, any pass catcher, if you cannot get him the football, it will not work, and you're going to have to call him a bust of a pick. So I'm not calling Kyle Pitts a bust, right? But a bust of a situation. So I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. Then I'm also going to go Drake London because I don't know if you remember last year, DP. Drake London was a guy that he came on the scene early, right? Like he was drafted, top 10? Was he the first wide receiver off the board? I believe so. I think the Falcons took him first, right? And then
number 8.
You had a situation where he, other guys caught him. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, right? Jahan Dotson. Now he's looking like that 4th or 5th wide receiver in that draft class, which if you're the Atlanta Falcons, that's not looking that good. So I just want to see are those 2 guys. Make sure they're in game shape. Make sure they're moving well. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to walk away from this and say, you know what? that the Atlanta Falcons, they have all the skill positions. And this is the part why at the beginning of the segment, I said sometimes I get intrigued, right? It's because you think about the Drake London, you think about the Kyle Pitts, and you think about the Bijan Robinson. And so if they can get the football to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and it's like that's some unique weapons that you have if you're the Atlanta Falcons. But it's a matter of how do those guys look, and then they're very, they could be specific in their usage also.
And Keith, you know that I was not the biggest fan of their draft decisions because they had some holes. They had a hole at corner, edge rusher, interior, just different positions. And they I felt like they reached, moving up, taking Zach Harrison. That's a guy I'm going to be like, my binoculars is going to be on him every single week whenever he hits the field because I need to see. This was a highly inconsistent, toolsy player at Ohio State. And you drafted him to help fix your inconsistent pass rush? That's DP, kind of a reach to me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you stopped right there, right? Because that's where I was going next. And then you look at this, right? Because it's not just Zach Harrison in this pass class, but it's Arnold Ebiketie, right? It's Troy Anderson.
Malone.
It's D'Angelo Malone. So that's four guys over the past two drafts where they were toolsy, right? Like they were athletic, but there were still some things that were needed, you know what I'm saying, in order for them to be able to turn the corner. So, man, this is very important because if those four guys hit, you're talking about a different Atlanta Falcons team. If they don't hit, you're talking about, hey, who knows, right? So I think it's like all of the deck has been set for the Atlanta Falcons, for these young guys. Y'all drafted them. Y'all better develop them. We want to see them in preseason. So those are definitely the names I'm looking for the Atlanta Falcons.
One more name is Darren Hall. I think he's a second, third-year corner for them, and he played a good bit down the stretch last year. With Jeff Okudah kind of battling an injury right now, I'm not sure when he's going to be back. Like that was the guy you brought in to be your CB2, right? Opposite of AJ Terrell. So now if Okudah does miss any time in the regular season, or if he's not 100% healthy to start the season, Darren Hall could be the guy that gets those starts or the heavier snap share just until Okudah's back ready to go. So I'm gonna keep my eyes on him because he did show me some good things. I think he's more of a zone corner, maybe some off man, more zone type of bail technique and stuff like that in coverage. So I want to keep my eyes on him because at the end of the day, Keith, this cornerback room you talked about, I think the Panthers and the Falcons receiver room. This cornerback room scares me, man, because it's AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah. Then who, right? I like the safeties with Jesse Bates and I think his name is Richie Grant. Those two I like, and they got DeMarco Hellams. That's another guy I'm watching, but the corner room kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, it went from a position of strength and everybody being really excited to with the injury to Jeffrey Okudah to where it's like,
all it takes is one when you don't have depth.
Right. And that's why you watch preseason games, man, because you need depth. You need those young guys to really be able to step up a DP. Here we go. Let's transition, baby. We going to the pick'em games. We get to decide, do we agree or disagree on these games, man? These two games, I'll go right off the bat. I think people may be surprised with a couple of my picks. So coming up next, man, we'll get into these pick'ems. We get to put it on wax, let you know who we're going to pick in these preseason games to win a football game.
Winning predictions, it's time to pick them, Keith. We have starting first, right? The Carolina Panthers tonight facing off with those New York Giants, the New York football Giants, Keith. Who you picking in this game?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's clear, right? And then this is week 2, and I think this is week 2 for both of these guys. Not like yesterday where the Cleveland Browns on week 3 and all that other stuff. Right. So Bryce Young is going to should play a great deal. He's probably, usually when they're getting the veterans in or the guy that's going to start the starters, right? They usually play a half of football. So I'm expecting a half of football for Bryce Young and then a half of football for the New York Giants. Then the second half, I'm looking at the New York Giants and they're going to bring in Tyrod Taylor. So I'm going with the New York Giants, right? Because I don't know if I want to see the Carolina Panthers offense at this moment versus this New York Giants defense, because I think Wink Martindale, he's the type of coordinator where I feel like he don't care, right? Like it's preseason, you know what? I'm going to dial it up. Let's send some stuff. I want to make sure that I have my end covered when we walk into week 1, that not all of the exotic blitzes, right? But we're going to get a little bit complex in what we want to do. I want to see y'all execute it so that way we can go correct it on film, right? And we're really getting ready. So I think the Giants defense is going to get after them.
No, I'm picking the Giants too, Keith, and you put that right on the money. I think it's going to be beam me up, Scotty. That's going to heat them up. I think they're going to legit send pressure. I think Wink Martindale is going to send a message to the teams that's on the quarterbacks that's on this schedule in the regular season. This is what you need to look forward to when you see the Giants on your on the week schedule that week. When it's Giants week, just know I'm sending pressure at you, sending pressure your way, and then of course that leaky offensive line. No matter if Savala's healthy, they still got to find, even if they find the right guy to put in those positions, you got to get the chemistry on the offensive line and trying to get that going, second week of the preseason and doing some shuffling. Yeah, it's kind of rough. So I'm picking those Giants, man. I think that Wink Martindale is going to get after it. And they play a lot of man-to-man. And the biggest question I have about this offense for the Panthers, can they beat man-to-man coverage? I don't think they can.
That's exactly where I go. We're going to learn about the young guys that we talked about in the first segment, right? Can y'all get open? Can y'all separate? Because I can see the Giants sending that pressure with DP. Let's go, right? We got the Bengals versus the Falcons. Who are you picking in this game?
Man, that's tough. Big, no Joe Burrow. You got Jake Browning, Trevor Siemian. I'm about to say Trevor Sycamore. Shout out to my boy Trevor Sycamore at PFF. Reed Sennett, at QB. Against Taylor Heineke, Logan Woodside. That's tough. I'm going to Falcons. I'm going to Falcons. I think the Falcons, when you have two really good running backs, you got a 1,000-yard second-year running back in Tyler Algier, who's now your secondary back behind your top 10 pick in Bijan Robinson. I think they're going to still run the ball, get the run game going, lean on that, get the offensive line kind of pushing forward, especially on like the backup defensive lineman, which isn't too bad for the Cincinnati Bengals with Zach Carter, Jay Tufele, stuff like that. Josh Tupou. But at the same time, it's not going to be the starters the whole game. So I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons and that run game to kind of shorten that second half out.
Yeah, this is why fans are going to say the preseason doesn't matter in a sense, right? Because I think the Falcons are going to win this game. Now, if this was regular season and the starters were playing, there's no way, no shot I'm taking the Falcons to beat the Bengals, right? But I think, like you said, with no Joe Burrow, and we talked about all these young Falcons, right? I think that they're going to play, and I think they're going to have to play a lot because they're going to need them to be ready for the season. So I think we're going to get a lot more of the Falcons starters, or those kind of like 1.5-ish type guys that's heavily in the rotation. And I think the Bengals from the very beginning, right, they're not going to have their starting quarterback. So they're going to be on the second string, the third string, the fourth string quarterback. So I think the Falcons are going to win.
With Joe Burrow not playing, do you think we see T. Higgins and Jamar Chase?
You might see him run a slant. You know what I'm saying? You might see him get out there and run a slant.
They got one route in them, guys. They got one route in them, and that's all you
get. Yeah, because I also think they're going to be so focused on getting, wide receiver 3, 4, 5, and 6 ready, right? Because that one of those guys go down, you need to have
Charlie Jones.
Yeah,
Andre Yoshevas. Sorry, Yoshevas. Andre Yoshevas. Who was one of our guys, man. So and he was targeted 10 times last week. 10 targets last week.
Those guys are going to get a lot of burn again. So that's what I think. I think Jamar Chase, look, he's ready to roll, right? Like we way past the days of he can't catch the ball without the stripe on it or whatever it may be. And T. Higgins, we know what that's going to be. But DP, that wraps up the show, man. We get Friday night lights tonight. I'm gonna be tapped in. I'm gonna be watching. I'll be tweeting like I always say, man. You guys, listen, man. If y'all are watching, if y'all are, looking at the game, man, y'all have opinions, man. Tweet at us, right? You know where to find us. Our Twitter handle is on the bottom of YouTube. You can find DP at DP_NFL. My guy, he fires off probably 50 tweets, right? He's rolling all day long, man. You can find me at the Talent Code, man. I'm probably more on the 10 tweet a night type of guy, but man, you definitely know you could tap in with us, man.
Nah, for sure, guys. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share, but also hit the bell notification so you're notified anytime that we drop content on the channel, YouTube Shorts, the podcast, whatever. So you can be up to date and whenever that content has dropped. Listen, it's Friday. Have a great weekend. Y'all be safe out there. Enjoy Friday night lights, man. Enjoy the football games tonight and have a great weekend. A whole slate full of football games tomorrow and Sunday and everything. We'll be back Monday, you know what I'm saying, to talk about and recap what has happened, as well as, Sunday nights I typically record my quick takeaways just to give you guys, my voice and let you know, hey, man, this is what DP was looking at. And then me and Keith will dive in to all the action on Monday and Tuesday, all right? So in terms of Twitter, like he said, DP_NFL, you can find him at The Talent Code. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.